Nintendo dominated this year. There's no getting around it. Is that the Nintendo games were just better than everything that came out on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. And today we are going to be talking about the 10 games that excelled beyond all others. The best of the year, the cream of the crop. These are the top 10 games of 2025. Street Fighter 6 is not on this list. Because of all the time I spent on Street Fighter 6, because of all the hours and hours grinding on it to get good at it and to start winning, I can conclusively say that Street Fighter 6 is garbage and that Mortal Kombat 2, a 30-year-old arcade game, is still better than it. The Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection is fantastic, filled to the brim with amazing content, unforgettable characters, and some of the best sprite work you'll ever see. This game is the absolute epitome of what gaming was in the 90s and really should be celebrated as a golden example of just how much better things were back then. From a technical perspective, these games are dated. There are problems with the AI, and the combat is rather limited, but they're fun. This is the thing that the Mortal Kombat trilogy really understood is that fighting games aren't necessarily about being ultra competitive and being like really complicated. Like Mortal Kombat is more pick up and play, it's more accessible, and at the same time, it has a lot of depth to it. It has a lot of interesting lore. It has a lot of fun secrets. It has a lot of reason to keep even casual players coming back. And that is something that we are sorely missing from the fighting game community today. Modern fighting games really need to learn what made Mortal Kombat so appealing to people back in the 90s. They really need to bring new people in while still retaining a semblance of what makes these games fun and entertaining to play. Mortal Kombat is not and never has been as technically demanding as Street Fighter, and yet, because of its simplicity, because of how easy it is to pick up and play, it has remained far more popular over the decades. If you're interested in retro video games or fighting games in general, I strongly encourage you to pick this one up. For me, Donkey Kong Bonanza was something that I was very much looking forward to and something that I thought could be the best game released this year. And unfortunately, I was very disappointed. I did feel as if the mechanics weren't utilized very well, the level design wasn't great, that this was kind of a repeat of what happened with Odyssey, in which it has really, really high production values and yet not a lot of thought put into how these new mechanics can be utilized in a fun, engaging way. I was kind of disappointed with Donkey Kong Bonanza, and although the DLC salvaged it a lot, the DLC is actually one of my all-time favorite DLC expansions ever for any Nintendo game now. Uh, the long and short of it is that I came away feeling very, very, very disappointed with Donkey Kong Bonanza. But at the same time, it still has a lot going to it for it. The mechanics are really interesting. The environments are very lush and vibrant. It gave us a very new, original take on the Donkey Kong formula, which is something that we've been needing for a very, very long time. I applaud the effort, if not the final result. And still, though, in spite of my problems with Bonanza, like it was a lot of fun to play. The combat is some of the best we've ever seen out of any 3D Nintendo platformer. A lot of the boss fights were really fun and memorable. The bonanzas were really fun and distinct. Like, it's so much fun to tear up the environment and just to have this feeling that there's going to be some amazing payoff. And there is. Like, if you've played this game, you won't come away thinking it's bad. But at the same time, it's nowhere near the level of quality that I was expecting from Donkey Kong of all things, Nintendo's original gold standard IP. So this game could have been a lot better, but at the same time, like I still really, really enjoyed my time with it. At number 8, we have the exact opposite. A game that I was not looking forward to at all that turned out to be way better than I was expecting. Kirby Air Riders is packed to the gills with fun, original mechanics. Whether it comes from the gorgeous level design, the amazing animations, the vast variety of drivers and vehicles in the game, to just the insane amount of content in each and every one of the four modes. This is a bigger and better Kirby Air Ride. And my biggest criticism of it is that it does feel a little bit too similar to the original in the sense where there's not really a whole lot of new modes and features. And what we essentially get is just an improved version of what we already had. And considering how underdeveloped the original was in a lot of ways, it actually is kind of nice to see the team return to make something that radically improves on the original. It is very easy to forget just how hated the original Kirby Air Ride was when it came out. And even I, when I first saw this, was kind of confused about why they decided to come back to it. But as it so happens, they were able to refine and improve on the initial idea and make something that is absolutely worth playing. Now, there are problems with this game. Like I do feel like Top Ride isn't as good as the other two main modes, and the single player mode Road Trip is also kind of underwhelming and just comes off as like a single player city trial in which you build your vehicle over like 2 hours instead of 5 minutes. It feels like to me they could have come up with something a little bit more interesting than that, honestly. But at the same time, like this game does is such an original, fun to play racing game that it's probably something that people are going to go back to for a long time. In fact, Kirby Air Ride, something that was like very unpopular when it first launched, that went on to have a very dedicated scene for years after the fact. So I think this is another example of just how Nintendo can pull out a dormant franchise and make a successful sequel out of it. This is one of like the major success stories we've seen from Nintendo this year, and I think a lot of people aren't really talking about the implications of that. The fact of the matter is, the original Kirby Air Ride came out 22 years ago. And the fact that the sequel came out and became a bestseller is a really strong indication of just how Nintendo can bring back something like this, something obscure, and make it into this huge hit. Like this is something that should be exciting people because it should indicate that in the long term we are going to start seeing more and more projects like this. So that is something that I think we all should be looking forward to. Unfortunately, I have not had the chance to play Ninja Gaiden 4 yet, but what I did have a chance to play was the other game they put out, Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, the 2D sequel to just the classic NES games. And this is something that really intrigued me when I first saw it because I am very, very happy that games like this are now seen as viable and that they will be produced and they will be released. Like this was clearly done to kind of pay homage to classic NES 2D side-scrolling action games, and it delivers. Like the animations are gorgeous, the level design is great, the mechanics are fresh and interesting, and most particularly, these are the best boss fights we have seen this year. Like this was a phenomenal game to play through, and although I still have to go through hard mode again and get the true ending, this is something that I really came away from feeling that it was something remarkable, that this game was as good and memorable as it was. This is probably one of the hardest games that came out this year. It's way harder than Silk Song, for the record. So, for those of you who haven't checked this out, I highly, highly, highly suggest checking out Ninja Gaiden Ragebound. At number 6, we have the recently released Metroid Prime 4. Now, anybody who has heard me cover this game knows that I was going into this very negatively that I really didn't think this game would be like all that interesting or fun to play or original. And thankfully, that was not the case. Like when you actually play Metroid Prime 4 and you actually get to experience it, what you get is a lot of very interesting locations, a lot of really well designed, tight levels, a lot of great combat scenarios, a lot of great boss fights, basically everything you want out of a Metroid Prime game. The problem is that it's bogged down by a handful of low points that drag down the entire experience. If this game was more polished, this probably would have been a lot higher on the list because I really do feel like when the game is at its absolute peak, it's about on par with the original Metroid Prime trilogy. But as it so happens, because of like all the issues with it, some of the weird decisions they made when it comes to say the world design and like the bike and things like the Emerald Quest, like they're the way the NPCs were handled, like there are things you can complain about with this game that are valid, but at the same time, it doesn't really diminish what makes the game so memorable and so fun. I've actually already had to stop myself from doing a hard mode playthrough because I realized that I hadn't really scanned everything in the game and didn't have like a thorough understanding of the really well told, engaging story. And that is kind of the issue with this game. And I think one of the reasons this game has been so controversial is that a lot of people don't engage with things like the scanning or think about the environment at all or put a lot of thought into like what's actually happening in the game because it's very easy to assume nothing is happening in this game when in actuality like it actually has probably one of the better told stories in the Metroid Prime series. Like it is shocking how far above the ending is compared to the rest of these games, and yet a lot of people will try and tell you it's kind of trite and boring when I thought it was like very riveting and engaging. I was shocked by how good the ending to this game actually is. And we got like all this cool payoff when it came to Silux, and like we finally get his origin story, and there's just so much to like about this game. It's very hard not to recommend it. But again, this is a very niche game for a very niche demographic, and I think if you're a fan of Halo or like a more casual sci-fi property, you may not really understand the appeal of this. And if you're one of those casual gamers, you are going to come away probably disappointed. And thankfully, if you're watching this, you're probably not a casual gamer, and you're probably going to find this very riveting and very engaging. My game of the year of 2022 was Pokemon Legends Arceus. So I came into like Pokemon Legends ZA with a ton of high expectations and all these bloated. And I was hoping that it would be just as good or better than Pokemon Legends Arceus, and it just wasn't. Not even close. But unfortunately, Pokemon Legends Arceus is one of my favorite Pokemon games ever now, so obviously the follow up was going to have a hard time keeping up with it. For the first couple of hours or so, I was disappointed. But around the halfway point, when you start meeting the cast of characters and start getting into the vibe of Lumiose, when you start like getting on board with like the world building and the culture and the unique mechanics and just like exploring the city and hearing that amazing soundtrack, you really start to feel sucked into the world. Like this game went in a radically different direction than Legends Arceus. It is not the same game at all. It plays radically differently. It has completely different writing style and tone and perspective on things, and that's what makes Pokemon Legends so amazing is that they are willing to take risks like this. They are willing to throw out everything they did with Legends Arceus and start with something fresh, new, and original. Now, is this as good as Legends Arceus? Is it as good as like the RPGs that it's obviously aping off of, like Yakuza and Atelier? It struggles to hit those high points. But the simple fact of the matter is that the fact that they tried to do something like this, the fact that they experimented so much, the fact that like this is essentially a sequel to Pokemon X and Y and follows up on a lot of characters from that game. Even niche ones that nobody really cares about or remembers, like Mabel. That speaks volumes as to how much effort and care Game Freak and the Pokemon Company put into like building the setting and world. Like it was shocking seeing how many callbacks there were to X and Y in this, and seeing just how well utilized it was, and just how much mileage they got out of like some pretty basic characters. And considering how the DLC is still oncoming, like how we still have how we're still getting updates, and how there's still like things changing in Lumio City, like this game is even going to get even better with time, to the point where I honestly see this game as probably one of the biggest hits of the year. Like for me personally, though, I did prefer Legends Arceus, and I do have to address the fact that some things in this game are kind of monotonous. Like the mega evolution battles, the rogue megas aren't exactly fun to fight, and there's some issue but the long and short of it is, like, this is a huge improvement over an X and Y. It took one of my favorite locations in Pokemon, Lumio City, and actually did something fresh, original, and exciting with it. And it really gave this game like this really fun, unique tone that I think a lot of people just can really vibe with and really chill out to. If Pokemon Legends Arceus was the Attack on Titan of Pokemon, this is more like, I don't know, like some slice of life manga series. And that's what makes Pokemon special, is that it can have all these different tones while still kind of retaining its sensibilities, and still being a Pokemon game. And that's what makes this IP, I think, so enduring and so iconic and so timeless, is that they can do things like this. So, full disclaimer here, I have not yet beaten Final Fantasy Tactics. It is very possible that the ending to this game is so amazing that it becomes like my number one or gets higher up on the list, but unfortunately, I just couldn't find the time to play this one. And it's very unfortunate because this is something that I've been putting off for a decade, something that I bought day one, something that I was really looking forward to, and just couldn't find the time to play through it because, like, I've just been playing so many other RPGs, and this is a pretty long and grindy one. And I have been having a blast playing Final Fantasy Tactics. I love the setting, I love the tone, I love the characters. This is probably one of the most well-rounded political dramas I've read in a long time, where you have like dozens of characters, all with their own like factions and motives and personalities and relationship with the protagonist and with each other. Like, it is shocking playing this game and seeing just how in depth the lore gets. Like, you have an entire in-game encyclopedia to talk about like years and years worth of history, of background, of character dynamics, of their personal histories, of things that happened to them before the game even started, of just, political alliances. You have like all this lore about like the history of the church and like the religion and how it's all a big lie. Like, it is just this incredibly engaging RPG, and honestly, probably one of the most engaging RPG plots I've ever seen in my life. Like, the sheer amount of crazy nonsense that happens in this game, I was shocked at like some of the things that happen in like the first couple of chapters. Okay, characters like Delita have these incredibly complex motivations, backgrounds, and pull off these insane, almost protagonist like feats like throughout the story that really make you feel drawn into the setting and world, as if there are all these crazy powers and factions like completely out of Ramza's control. Like, it is incredible at just how well fleshed out and imaginative this world is. Now, are there problems? I would say for me, it feels more like a grind fest than a proper RPG. Okay, like instead of like optimizing your units to take advantage of the unique skills, like basically what you end up doing is that you grind a lot and get to the point where you can beat the next level. Like, that's it. Like, the difficulty spikes going from stage to stage are downright ridiculous. And for my money, I was kind of surprised at just I felt like I was required to to upgrade my classes like as soon as possible. Like the enemy would have all these advanced classes and spells while I was still dinking around with like basic stuff. You have to grind a lot in this game, and it does kind of feel as if it's very unnecessary and kind of kills the pacing. I found myself thinking that Fire Emblem has way better pacing and way better structure, in which it actually has unique individual units that have their own unique backgrounds, personalities, and skill sets that you have to utilize to their best effect. Like Fire Emblem is better than this, no doubt. But at the same time, I really have to commend Square for making something like this, something that's this daring, something that tackles this many strong subjects, something that's this well written and compelling. This very well may be one of the best written Final Fantasy games ever, and that is something that should be commended. At the number 3 spot, we have, of course, the premier Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive Mario Kart World, a game that the gaming industry desperately tried to bury, desperately tried to ignore, only to fail. This is one of the best games of the year, full stop, with amazing level track design, with all these fresh original mechanics, the best cast of characters out of any Mario Kart game ever. Like anyone who says this game is bad is downright delusional. And I would like to emphasize the fact that a lot of the criticisms lobbied at this game were lobbied back at Mario Kart 8, back at Mario Kart 7, back at Mario Kart Wii, back at Mario Kart DS. Like you have always had people complaining about blue shells, okay? Like I've seen so many people like try and complain about the racing being supposedly unbalanced and how they can't win, and instead of like being dismissed as a skill issue, the cope is that like the game is just too unbalanced to be fun. And the simple fact of the matter is that's not true. That never will be true. Like this isn't a racing game that you can consistently win. You're racing to try to win. Okay, you're racing against other people who are just as good as you, who understand the mechanics just as well as you do. That like you're not gonna win every single race you get into, and it is shocking how much criticism of this game essentially boils down to the fact that most people can't win consistently at it. So instead of playing this game to just have fun and enjoy the all of the unique features, the amazing Grand Prix mode, the completely new original Knockout Tour mode, and the amazing open world, which was pretty successfully written off by game journos, but I think over time will start to develop a cult following. I myself really, really, really love the open world and spend a lot of time just driving around, enjoying the sights, and just enjoying the vibes of it. And that's something that I think a lot of people don't understand about this is that this game is fun. Like I keep seeing people complain about like, well, it doesn't have enough content, and I'm just like, playing the game is the content. You know, like there are just so many examples of just like weird criticisms towards this game that just have no bearing at all. And you are going to see the narrative against this game collapse over the next 5 to 10 years. This has been a very extremely well received Mario Kart game, and honestly, the criticism it's gotten online is just kind of a fringe minority of people, a fringe group of weirdos who are desperate to downplay every single Nintendo game that comes out. And that really needs to be said is that like basically all the games I've talked about on this list have been downplayed to some extent. And Mario Kart World, more than any of them, I think has gotten the worst of it. It is just embarrassing to see just how many people have tried to pretend this game has failed or that it's dead or that it's not very good. This game was phenomenal, and I am very, very excited to see more from it. It's always a pleasure to discover a brand new IP that you've never really been able to get into before. I have heard about Hitman for the past 20 years. I've seen like clips of it on G4. I've seen people talk about it. It's always been on like the fringes of of gamer culture, and I've always been like very, very interested in it. But because of just not owning the right platforms, because I was never able to get into it, because of like I just never was able to take the time. I was never able to play Hitman, and I have tried to play on occasion. I own like a couple of them on PS3. I own like I've tried to play Hitman 3 Blood Money, like I've tried like spending some time with these games. I felt personally that I would like these games if I had grown up with them, because a lot of these older Hitman games are kind of archaic, they're kind of simple, like they're not simplistic, but like it just felt like, considering their age, like I was really struggling to get into them. And playing Hitman World of Assassination was exactly what I needed, because these were modernized Hitmans that were geared more towards someone like me who didn't have a lot of experience with stealth games, someone like me who didn't play a lot of Hitman, someone like me that was really struggling to get into the old games even though I was genuinely interested in them. Like, this game streamlined the experience while still retaining what made Hitman so spectacular. Not only did I play through all of these games and kill like all the targets, I am now going through it trying to get all the achievements and trying to like learn everything there is to know about each of these areas. And what's shocking to me is just how much effort went into like the writing, how much effort went into the stage design, how much effort went into like the wide variety of creative ways in which you can kill your targets. It is crazy how many times I've played through the first stage showstopper and I'm still learning and discovering new things about it. As you can see in this gameplay footage, I was kind of like just kind of casually just going through it, just like, well, how do I want to go about this? Do I want to do this? Like, it's like it was interesting, like playing this and just oh, I'm gonna poison his drink. Oh, well, I don't have poison. Okay, I'll just drop this chandelier. Like, it was things like this. Like, you can spend dozens of hours in like one stage going after one set of targets and just never really get tired of it. Like, it is remarkable like how good these games actually are. And honestly, at this point, like I want to say that this is probably my personal favorite stealth game of all time now. And that's not something I ever thought I would say, but I I do feel as if these games really understand like stealth better than something like Metal Gear Solid. Like, your actions do have consequences. Like, you can go after your targets in a variety of ways. Like there's all this creative level design and honestly engaging storytelling and character writing. Like I keep seeing people say that the writing in this game isn't good, but I greatly disagree. I think they do a really good job creating this kind of James Bond-esque setting where like all these criminal masterminds need to be taken out, and it's just something that you really get sucked into and really, 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 really enjoy. For the longest time, I thought this was going to be game of the year. Like, I really thought this was going to be number one. I really could not think of a single game that came out this year that was better than it, but in the end, I did find one. The number one most critically acclaimed game on Metacritic this year is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Number two is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. These games were re released on Nintendo Switch with better graphics, and as it so happens, both of them are still way better than anything else that's come out this year. Not a single game has come even close to topping these masterpieces. The Legend of Zelda and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild are both masterpieces that have kind of defined gaming culture for the past decade. Not a single game has come even close to topping what these games have accomplished. And it really needs to be studied just how much better these games are than the competition, because we still exist in a society that tries to tell you that Baldur's Gate 3 was the better game in 2023. We lived in a society where Jim Sterling rallied to try and get people to care about Horizon Zero Dawn. But you know what? Baldur's Gate failed. You know what? Horizon Zero Dawn failed. You know what? like Claire Obscure Expedition 33 has failed. Like the simple fact of the matter is, like Nintendo games are so popular and so iconic, they kind of transcend the year in which they come out, making the Game of the Year award completely meaningless. You know, if people are still playing Tears of the Kingdom years after release, why would they care about an inferior game that came out in 2025? You know, Tears of the Kingdom is a game that's like hundreds of hours long, that takes a lot of time and commitment to get through. Like, why would normies ever bother with other inferior games when they could just play more Zelda? And that's kind of my mindset when looking at this game, is that like it's so big, it's so expansive, it's so good. Like Breath of the Wild too is this good. Why exactly can we not acknowledge this as game of the year twice over? Okay, if this is the best game released in the year 2023 and the best game released in 2025 on a new console, like why can't we just acknowledge that? Why can't we just acknowledge that Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild are better than everything else that came out this year? Like we do need to acknowledge that. We do need to acknowledge that these games are just better than the competition and are like a couple of generations ahead of what other developers are doing. Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to come out a full 3 years after Tears of the Kingdom and going to feel very stale and uninspired compared to it. You know, like it is remarkable how amazing Tears of the Kingdom actually is, and just how The Legend of Zelda has remained gaming's most prestigious franchise for the past 40 years. Like, it is going to be very, very interesting to see what the future has in store for this franchise. But after Tears of the Kingdom, the future is looking very bright indeed.